Welcome to the Felicia Marshall Experience on WeBelieve.global, where we empower mothers who have lost children to violence. My daughter, Alexia K. Buckhalter, was murdered on March 14, 2017, here in the city of Jackson. Each program is dedicated to her memory. Today, we will discuss issues that are informative, inspirational, and involved, empowering mothers to speak for their sons and daughters who can't speak for themselves. Welcome to the Felicia Marshall Experience. Welcome to the show tonight. We're just super excited today about having one of our previous guests here, Ms. Shantell Johnson, and she's going to come and give us an update in regards to her son who was murdered in September. Ms. Johnson, welcome to the show. Welcome back.
Well, thank you for having me again.
Yeah, so the last time you were here, and I want you to kind of give us, catch us up to speed for those people that did not see you on the last show, and tell us a little bit about Christopher.
Okay, well, Christopher was murdered on September 23rd, 2021, right here in Jackson, Mississippi. Since then, the crime lab held the body for about a month and a half, so I wasn't allowed to make any funeral arrangements until they released the body.
Okay, don't take me that fast. Okay, so for those people that don't know anything about Christopher, tell us a little bit about Christopher. Give us a backstory.
Okay, well, Christopher was my firstborn, first baby in the house of a long time. Truly was loved. Also suffered from mental illness. And he struggled with that pretty much all of his life. Other than that, he was a kid at heart. Loved music, loved the band, loved his family. Very energetic, outgoing, outspoken, just loved the life.
What were, you said that he suffered from mental illness. Can you tell us a little bit about what he was actually diagnosed with?
Yes, he was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, bipolar, multi-personality disorder, and he also suffered as SLD, which stands for slow learning disability, and he also was a severe stutterer.
So you told us earlier, and when you were here before, that he was actually diagnosed at the age of 4.
Yes.
And can you kind of tell us some of the problems? Because what we want people to know is a little bit about Christopher, and then we're going to walk into what has happened since you were here on the last show. So just give us a little backdrop to some of the struggles that you had with him as a child with mental illness. And then we're going to move into him as an adult.
Yes. It started early on. Most people are very familiar with the drug Ritalin. And that was the first drug that Christopher was introduced to. What is now Brentwood, 20-some years ago, it was Charter that pretty much provide the same services that they provide now. They put him on medication at the age of 4. It progressed on to adolescent years, where by the age of 7, they was giving him Haldol mixed with 2 milligrams of codeine to keep his muscles from locking up. By the age of, like I say, adolescent years, things changed, and changed tremendously. Because by that time, he had grown up from a little boy to a young man, physically. So society didn't see no young child anymore. They seen a young man. And that's how he was treated accordingly.
So although he was an adult, he still had the mentality of a small child.
Correct.
And although you knew that, the society around him did not know that.
Well, I pretty much made it known. Every neighborhood I moved in, I went to the precinct and I talked with the captain of the sergeant and let them know this resident here has a mental patient in it. Pretty much anyone that have worked in AMR or worked at the local hospitals or worked with JPD or Hines County, they very familiar with me. I not only was Chris' mother, I was his activist too. If you mistreated him, you had to deal with me. If you didn't do him right, you had to deal with me. It was no one that I ever let their word override mine when it came to my child and in his best interest. And I ran into a lot of backlash with that. You know, I used to tell people when I was fighting for Christopher in the criminal justice system, I used to tell the judges and everybody, you have your title, and I have mine. But mine come from God, and that's that gift that he gave me. So, I'm a mother, and no title mean more to me than that, or hold more weight to no one than that. So now, I'm the same person that I was. When I walk in the room, you know I'm there. You know I'm there as a mother first, and as a woman first. Then I address the problem at hand. I have went against so many powerful people and powerful organizations for that little boy. And I always stood my ground, because what's right is right. And when you right, I would take it to the Supreme Court if I have to.
So you were his activist as a small boy on the mental illness aspect of it.
Yes.
And now you've been chosen to be an activist on another level.
Yes.
So, you know, you and I have been talking about, you know, the importance of mothers being involved. Can you kind of shed some light on that, on the importance of mothers, our family members being involved in the lives of their children, not only in regards to mental illness, but, you know, as we move into the segments, we know we're going to be talking about these crimes. So can you kind of move into telling us a little bit about the importance of these families being involved?
Well, I became a mother at 15 years old. And I knew then Chris was all I had and I was all he had. And he depended on me. Motherhood is a feeling that words cannot explain. I don't know a word that I can put in a sentence to describe motherhood. You just can't. You know, a mother is a doctor, she's a lawyer, she's a pediatrician, she's a counselor, she's a homemaker, you know, she's an all-around fixer. That's who a mother is. And that's what I am. You know, back then, when I got pregnant with Christopher, we had a teenage pregnancy around the world epidemic. You know? And in the black communities, you had the drugs, you had the guns, and then you had a teenage pregnancy problem. I was a part of that statistic, but I made it my business that I wasn't gonna sit there.
Why? Why was it different for you?
It was different for me because I grew up in a house where love was the main ingredient. You know, my granny, she didn't allow us to tell her problems, even as a child growing up. And in order for people to understand my character, you have to understand my foundation. As a child, if you felt mistreated and this here and that there, my granny used to have a saying, don't tell man, tell God. Go to the closet and let it all out in the closet, and you leave it there. So I have done that my whole life. You know, everybody know I always had a sense of humor. I'm the life of the party. You know, if you feeling down, and you can call me, and I will say something that's gonna make you laugh, without even trying to make you laugh. That's just who I am. You know, so I have a relationship with God, and me and him, we joke a lot. I talk to him a lot. I'm talking about so much to where he surprises me with the stuff that he do. You know, but with that foundation and putting it in my everyday life, it has been my anchor for problems and trials and tribulation. He didn't never say you weren't going to go through nothing. It's how you handle it when you go through it. And that's me.
So your grandmother raised you?
I was raised by everybody. You know,
I know you got like an old soul.
Both of my grannies, my dad, mom, who's had raised all of her kids here. My mom come from Kia, Mississippi, down on the coastline. She was a midwife that delivered over 530 something babies. You know, my mom have a big family, so I come from a big family, and just like any other kid, when you didn't have your way, I had over 17 aunts and uncles to maneuver from.
Yeah.
You know? But they all was the same. It all came from each one of my grannies' foundation. My dad, mom, who I spent a lot of my time with here in Jackson, she never lost a child. You know, she had 10 children, and they went on and lived, and they had children. I'm one of those kids. And then I had a child. So when this, you know, when stuff like this happened, I couldn't rely on that side of the family. I had to tap back into my mom's side of the family, because my granny, she laid 2 kids down before she left here. One from homicide, dealing with a police department. Over the years, I heard the stories, you know, about my uncles, and I seen the pictures and stuff. You know, I knew, but it was the way I watched my granny handle it.
So Christopher, at the age of 15, Christopher was kind of raised by not only you, but he also had the influences of your grandparents as well.
Everybody. And like I say, Christopher, you got to realize, Christopher, I always been a people person. People always loved me. All races, all kinds, all creeds, all religions, all ethnics of life. So back then, people was letting other people raise their kids. They were letting their mamas, their aunties, this here and that. Me, I always been a thinker. Always. When I found out, in order to get a job, all you needed was a copy. You didn't have to have the original birth certificate. I took my auntie typewriter and I changed my birthday. And I cut it out, taped it, ran a copy, and I went to Waffle House and got me a job. And by the time the general manager found out how old I was, he was like, let me tell you something, a school bus can come in here, Shantell can knock that school bus out, I don't get no complaints, she makes sales, I don't care how old she is.
We're going to let her work.
We're going to let her work. She's my best worker. And by that time, I still wasn't, I was semi-old enough, but I wasn't quite there yet. So it was a lot of good people. My class, I got pregnant with Chris at the 9th grade. I had 6 baby showers. Like literally, I had 6 baby showers at Rowan.
Just well loved.
He was just well loved before he even made it here. And it just was abundance of love. And everybody know, my family, we always had a club in our family. That's what fed us. You know?
You mean like a
nightclub?
A juke joint.
A juke joint. That's why we love music.
Yeah.
You know, we love music. So any place that ever played a live band, you can find me and Chris there. You know? So I got a chance to meet people from all walks of life. And this one gentleman that I had the pleasure of meeting through Chris was named William Hamrick. He was a guy who used to come to George Street Grocery all the time for happy hour. And one day he asked me, he said, Miss Johnson, do you mind if I take Chris fishing? I want him to know that all white people ain't bad. And they bonded. And once they bonded, he offered me a job. And I ended up working for him 13 years.
Oh, wow.
So Christopher got a chance to see other stuff from other cultures through him. He taught him fishing. He taught him boat riding, canoeing. He took him places. He showed him about the different sororities, different from our culture. And Chris adapted to that.
Oh, wonderful. Hold that thought. We're going to go to commercial, and then we'll come back for our second segment. Tonight's show is brought to you by earthblendcoffee.co. Black-owned roasted right here in Jackson, Mississippi. It's just great coffee. The link is in the Facebook description box. Click on the link and support our sponsor, earthblendcoffee.co. So when we come back, we're going to kind of move into Chris and his teenage days.
Yes, ma'am.
And we're going to talk about the mental health and the judicial system. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the show. We're joined, of course, by Miss Shantell Johnson, and she's giving us some updates regarding her son and his death from her last appearance here on the show. So before we went to the break, we were talking about Chris and him being taken in, so to speak, by other cultures, and how that made him experience more things. And so now let's talk about how Chris was as a teenager. You still a young mom.
Oh, yes, ma'am. Oh, yes. Yes, ma'am. Well, as a teenager, pretty much like any other teenager, most people that know mental illness and understand mental illness, most people that's mental ill, they walks. Mm. They walk and they talk and they smoke cigarettes. Mm. And that's fine. The problem is when you stop them from walking. Mm. When you stop them from walking and you stop them from talking to themselves and you stop them from their comfort zone. As a teenager, my rules still apply. Nobody enter my house after 10 o'clock. And if you're going to come in after 10, you better let me know before the street lights come on.
So had you dealt with mental illness before in order for you to be familiar with all of the aspects of Chris' diagnosis?
Where I experienced it in... It's hereditary. It runs very, very deep on my dad's side of the family. Mm-hmm. So deep to where, we got a slogan in our family. We're a pretty good family if you can get past our mental illness, But I knew how to deal with it as watching someone deal with it as an adult, because my father was schizophrenia.
Okay.
But he had 9 other brothers and sisters.
So can you I'm ignorant to this. So can you tell me, what that looked like? The only thing there was a movie I think called Sybil, and it was about a young girl that had personality disorder. Was this similar for Chris?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, very. I didn't know how to deal with it because with my experience of watching my granny deal with my daddy, she had 9 other children to help. Mm-hmm. So my dad drove trucks for K&M. He worked for Jackson Ready Mix, so he had a lot of support. He was able to function because of his support group. Mm-hmm. And they used to have a saying in my family, wherever there is a weak chain in the link, wherever there's a weak link in the chain, you will never know because the strong ones hold them up. Mm-hmm. And that's how pretty much what it was with my dad. Mm-hmm. One brother bought houses for him. Another sister, she cleaned up. Another sister paid the bills. The other brother did this. The other brother did that. When my dad retired, that's when I seen the real mental illness from my father. Mm-hmm. But other than that, long as he had obligation and responsibilities, he would function. But back then, his bosses knew. Mm-hmm. The owner of the trucking company, they knew. They knew he couldn't read and write, but he can operate that truck. Mm-hmm. And they gave him a chance. Same thing back when Jackson Ready Mix was in play. They knew he was a good worker and they knew about his mental illness and they allowed him a chance, society has changed. It's not like that anymore. So by the time it was my turn with Christopher, everything that I seen that worked no longer worked anymore.
So you tried to raise him as a normal little boy.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden, the things that you had taught him or the things that you expected were changing as he got older. So did he go through the normal, like, puberty and...
No.
None of that? Okay.
None of that.
Okay.
And he wanted to be normal. That's all he used to tell me. Mom, I don't want to be treated different. Mom, I want to be normal, you know. And most of his friends was another race. He got along with them. He felt comfortable with them. He knew he was loved around them. He could be himself around them. But majority of his life, he was around people that looked like him, that didn't allow him to speak since he had a speech problem, to have the patience to listen to him out. I had a problem with that because I am a talker, but I also struggled as a child for stuttering until my granny just worked on me. I was having speech therapy before I even made it to school. But with Christopher, it was similar to that, and I put my own self in different classes so I can learn how to deal with it. And it got better. So once I learned how to deal with it, I was pushing it out to society to say, hold up, you say what you got to say? Now you waiting to see what he got to say. And I even put that in IEPs throughout his whole school year.
So, as he was going into school, were you able to recognize when there was another dominant personality?
Oh, yes, most definitely. Most definitely.
Can you describe that?
I can. I'll give you a prime example. It was one personality that will come forward where he thought he need to be by himself at all times, which I will be worried about it because he would stay in that room for days at a time, you know. And he'll come out. He had a bathroom, and then he'll come out and eat, walk outside, but he'll go right back into that room. That room was his comfort zone. And when that person leave, then he'll come out and start walking.
Just constantly walking.
Just constantly walking. So I knew the different person that would come forward because of the behavior and the actions that it would show.
Were there names or just still Lil Chris?
It would still be Lil Chris.
Lil Chris.
Yeah. But the body language, face expressions, attitude, swag, all would be different.
How was that as a young parent? Because I'm thinking now you're probably 30?
43.
I'm talking about during this time. So you gave everybody the
Hey,
time.
I ain't ashamed.
I'm thinking now you're probably like 30, you know, when he's 15, you're 30.
Right.
You guys kind of like grew up together. Now he's a teenager. Was there a time period where he dated?
No.
No dating. He didn't show an interest. None of the personalities show interest in girls.
It was more stereotyped already. He was more stereotyped, so that made it hard.
How were you able to handle him as a young man? You know, they always say that, you know, women can't raise boys, teach them how to be a man. So how were you able to handle that part of trying to show him how to be a man in light of the fact that he had mental illness?
The Bible. That's about the best way that I can put it. You know, the rules of the land is already laid out before us. All we got to do is follow them. You know, the rules of the world is already laid out before us. We just got to follow.
So was mothering difficult, or you consider it, you know, I know, you know, using the Bible, and I know all of that, but was mothering difficult? Was it hard?
No.
Dealing with the system that was in place at the time?
That was hard. Now, dealing with the system, that was hard. Because over the age of 18, now I'm fighting in the big leagues. You know, I'm not fighting the little leagues or just meeting Miss Johnson demand. Now we in the criminal justice system.
What was the difference between him just getting the assistance that he needed in the mental health arena, where he crossed over to the criminal justice system? What was the difference?
Well, I tell you the difference. It's all a setup. The system is set up so you can fail. Under the age of 18, they will give you all the help in the world. Chris went across 3 state lines under the age of 18, all off of Mississippi Medicaid. And the Medicaid that come with his SSI. When I sent him to Bartlett, Tennessee, Mississippi paid for it. When I sent him to Douglasville, Georgia, Mississippi paid for it. When I sent him to Cairns, Mississippi paid for it. When I went against Jackson Public Schools, Mississippi paid for it. So, they do that under the age of 18. Now, over the age of 18, it's the new slavery. Literally. That's the best way to put it. It is the new modern day slavery. Period.
Was he able to graduate high school?
With a certificate.
With a certificate. Can you tell me about that day?
Oh, well, that day was in Douglasville, Georgia.
Okay.
It was not in Mississippi. Because I was determined that he got it. So when we moved to Douglasville, Georgia, that's how that was a moment where tears of joy flowed. That was a moment that he was so proud of. And he didn't get criticism or stereotype because he wasn't around nobody that knew him. So when he walked in that classroom and became a student up there in Douglasville, nobody knew that he stuttered. Nobody knew, and what he presented himself is what people seen. And it was good.
So he was in the regular school system?
Yes.
In there? Okay.
Yes.
So it wasn't a special class or anything like that?
And then he was streamlined. See, I would never, that was another thing that I caught backflash for. I would never put him in full contamination special ed. I only would have them to mainstream him out for the classes that he needed. Because in other classes, they was his strengths. He was good at it. Then not only that, we done had a daycare center in my family 85 years. So pretty much every child that's born in our family, you getting taught before you even enter Jackson Public Schools.
And so once he came back to Mississippi, it was downhill from there.
It was downhill from there. And I only came back to Mississippi because of my dad. My dad got sick and I had to come back. And then when he ended up passing away, we got on Mississippi funds and we've been here ever since.
And so the struggle was then is now Christopher is 18 years old.
Right.
And he no longer qualifies for Medicaid. And now in order for you to handle him as a mental ill patient, you have to turn it over to the criminal justice system.
Well, now they kind of stepped in.
So, I mean...
When I say they stepped in, I mean, say for instance, if Chris is off his medicine, I have to call the police on him. If I call the police on him, the only way they're going to take him out of there if a charge is on him. See, it wasn't like it used to be where I can drive down there and put him out and I can say, hey, hold him here for 72 hours and give me a chance to get him a bed at a mental hospital, whether it's Brentwood or Lyons, Mill Creek or whatever. That was out over the age of 18. Over the age of 18, the legislature cut a lot of funding by then. It's nowhere for them to go but acute places. And no acute medical treatment is going to help a long-term mental patient. Even when he entered the criminal justice system, it's so broken, it's not even equipped for mentally ill people. You know, the sheriff, I talked to so many different sheriffs when Chris was in jail, and the first thing they say is, Miss Johnson, everybody that claimed to be crazy straighten up when Chris come through the door.
So you didn't, did you feel, I'm going to ask you the question, did you feel helpless in regards to the care that he was getting?
Oh, no, I didn't never feel helpless because I'm going to find a way. I'm going to find a way. It's always a way.
Yeah.
You know, that's one thing that my character and me being Shantell would never let me do. I don't leave stuff undone. If I start it, I'm going to finish it. It's going to be a completion, you know. And if you tell me a no, I'm going to find a yes.
Well, hold that thought. We're going to go to commercial break. Tonight's show is brought to you by earthblendcoffee.co. Black owned, roasted here in the city of Jackson. It's just great coffee. The link is in the Facebook description box. Click on the link and support our sponsor. Welcome back to the show. And Ms. Shantell, before we went to the break, we were kind of talking about the mental health system in conjunction with the criminal justice system. And so now we're going to kind of move on into the week leading up to Chris's death.
Oh, everything was perfect. Just like any other week. We feed him 3 times a day. We wash his clothes. We take him where he need to go.
So he was actually operating as a young man. He could go places on his own, do things on his own. Did he respect you?
I demand it.
You demanded him to respect you. Was he...
Well, you know, with the mental part, you know, mental breakdowns come with disrespect. But at the same time, it always was consequences for disrespecting me. You not going to disrespect me without no consequences. I don't care who you is.
But you recognized it when he was having a mental episode.
Right. And even then, you know, when he would come back around, I would say, you done this, you done that. I'm not doing this or that because you did this and that. See, that's the whole scenario where... with mental ill people, I wanted to do what the brochure said. I wanted to do what the PhD people said and the master degree people said. But I also knew I had the last decision. And I also knew, despite of all of that, wasn't nobody going to have his best interest in heart but me.
And you was the authority in his life.
Yes.
And you knew that you were coming from a place of love, not a place of intellect, but a place of love.
Right.
And this was your child.
Yes.
Okay. So kind of tell me what was happening. Was he, I don't know what the N word is for, wearing the latest.
Oh, he was different.
He was?
He was different. He didn't wear the latest trend, you know. He'd take a bandana and run it across the top of his head like a turban. He wore that all the time. He liked the flashy stuff. He liked it odd shoes, odd stuff. You know, majority of kids his age listen to rap. You know, he liked the heavy metal. He liked the Kiss. He liked the Guns N' Roses.
Oh, wow.
You know, he liked the stuff like that because of who his godfather was, Mr. William. Mr. William had introduced him to everything on that culture. You know, he didn't know anything about the black sororities, but he knew everything about the white sororities.
Yeah.
You know, he didn't know anything about, you know, football and basketball and stuff like that. But he can tell you make, model, anything about a gun, anything about a tractor, anything that Mr. Bill was interested in that taught him as a little boy, he knew it. He knew 45 records. You know, anything that Mr. Bill had been interested in, he had adjusted and adapted it into his life.
So he looked up to Mr. Bill.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
How was he around other family members?
Oh, loving, laughing. Which,
Did he have a sense of humor?
yes, he always had, well, he got that honest from me, though. But, yes, he always had a sense of humor. And, you know, he get mad at me or my other cousin. He'll call my other cousin and tell her she love him, you know. And they'll call and say, did Chris call you and tell you he love you? She was like, yeah, but he ain't call me. Well, he mad at me today, you know. So it was things like that that he was just everybody's baby. Then he was my dad's baby, you know, most of all. A baby hadn't been in the house. Me and my sister, we are 16 years apart. So when I had Chris, it hadn't been a baby in our household in a long time. I'm the baby.
Right.
And I'm the baby on both sides of my family.
Yeah.
And, you know, I tell people when they say, Shantell, how many brothers you got? I got 13 brothers, but include in that 13 is all of my first cousins.
Yeah. So Chris was murdered on September 23rd.
Yes.
So can you tell us, because when you were here last, he had not been released from the crime lab. You had not had a funeral. None of that had happened. So can you kind of catch us up to date in that regard?
Okay, well, they finally released the body. I finally was able to have a funeral. I picked West Haven Funeral Home, and that's only because they are family. The people that worked there, they was part of the community base that loved on Christopher. Picked out outfits, picked out a suit.
How was that?
Now that was, as people know, I haven't cried. And I get a lot of criticism for that. But the people who really, really, really know me, they know that Chris' mental illness was a 7-year-old mind in a 28-year-old body. If you know me like most people think they know me, I got about 15 people up here. And each one of them is different, and each one of them think different. They just good. Some is bad, but I don't listen to them. You know? So, Miss Johnson is the one. So I say that to say this.
I think I get Miss Johnson all the time.
So nobody want to see Miss Johnson cry. Not in this situation right here. Nobody want to see me really grasp the situation. So Miss Johnson is just staying anchored so God can use her. Because see, I'd have been a good servant for the devil over these 43 years of me being on this earth. I don't want to work for him no more. I done switched on him. So I want to stay on God's side because I want to be a good servant for him. Because everybody know how good I am for the devil.
So you're saying that when you went to go, you hadn't cried, but when you went to go pick the clothes out, that kind of tugged on your heart?
It tugged on my heart because it brought me back to my dad. And I tell you, I wrote the obituary for my father. I did everything I did with my father for little Chris. And guess where I found myself 2 years later standing on his porch? I hadn't grasped it. I didn't grasp it until 2 years later when I went to a house my dad no longer lived in. And when I knocked on that door, I was looking for him to
come to the door.
And that's when it hit me. And that's when I broke. I didn't break till 2 years later. And I did everything. Same thing with Christopher. I knew I wanted to put him in white. I knew I wanted to put him in mental illness colors. And I knew I wanted to put him in gold because he loved it, the color gold. And he loved it, the bling. I put my dad in white. And I wore white. And we all wore white for my dad. And I want to do the same thing. But when that lady, when she laid that suit out on the table, and she told me I had to get it for 2 sizes up and stuff like that, when we was coming up, it used to be a TV show. Used to have the devil on this shoulder and God on this shoulder. And at that moment, I had both of them on my shoulders. and I chose God.
What was the other one telling you?
You don't even want to know. The other one was telling me, Shantell, you just like that man on Taken. You hold some special skills over your years that ain't nobody ready for. So you just turn your head to the left and pick God. You know, I might not have a lot. I might not have this. But what I have required over the years for working with the devil, I hold a lot of special skills that I don't want to use.
When it was time for me to pick out the clothes for Lexi, and I was walking this, it was almost like it was an out-of-body experience because in my mind I was like, everybody else is in here trying to find like an outfit to go, wherever they're going, but for me, I'm looking for the last piece of clothing that she'll ever wear. And I boo-hoo. I walked down the aisles and I cried. That's the reason why I asked you what was that like, because I know that the different layers of putting a person to rest, and picking out clothes is one of those things. So you were able to do that. You were able to bury him. Now what?
Well, you know what? The burial thing, I ran up on, with the experience of picking out the clothes and stuff, it was myself versus myself, because I never had a problem with facial reality. I am probably about the only person that I know that something so simple as common sense and facing reality the human race just can't do. When I went for the burial, I was blessed enough in a family where my granny was ahead of her times. Everybody know about Autumn Woods Cemetery. Everybody know it was established in 1999. Well, my granny made a deal to buy 10 plots over there in 98. Her and my dad's oldest sister. So I was able to go out there to see where I was going to lay Chris at. And I wanted to get him close to my dad and my sister. So I was able to put my sister is on the right, my dad is in the middle, and Chris will be on the left. But I found out that people don't buy vaults anymore. Mm-hmm. Me being an old spirit, old school, I never could put nobody in the ground without a vault. My granny used to have a saying, a casket can cost $2. You spend the money on the vault. Mm-hmm. So when I found myself in this position, I kept telling everybody in my family, I gotta have a vault. I put dad in the vault. I got to have a vault. I'm not putting nobody in no ground without no vault. And I want it custom made. And I want it white and gold. And I stood on that. And I found out that people don't do vaults no more. Mm. They got all of this whole list of stuff. And I'm like, wow. See how times have changed. Now they got the option for you can buy a fiberglass box. The option to buy a fiberglass box.
I guess it's dependent upon how much money someone has. So for those people that may not have the finances to buy the vault.
Well, back in the day, it was a city ordinance. You couldn't bury nobody without a vault. And see, I remember me as a little girl getting out there on 5 Point, helping my neighbor, helping our neighbors, helping our community. It wasn't nowhere around it. You had to have it. Now everything is based on BS. What this person doing, what that person doing. Even when I went out there to the graveyard, I just sat there and I looked out there. People not even buying tombstones. It is so many of those little markers that come from the funeral home, and I'm like, somebody need to tell these people, you owe an obligation to your loved one when they're living and when they're dead. You got to put that headstone on there. You supposed to take the spray off of that casket and make that first flower bouquet to go on that headstone. These are things that was taught.
But most people are not prepared like they were back in the day. Back in the day, there was a community person that came around and sold burial insurance. You might have been paying on it for 400 years, but when it was time for you to get buried, you had the money to do that. And we don't do that anymore. And so that's one of the problems, is a lot of times people are not financially able, are not, prepared for death. We prepare to live. We don't prepare to die. Nobody wants to talk about it. We all got to leave here, but nobody wants to talk about it. We're going to go to a break, and then when we come back, we're going to finish this conversation. Don't forget, we're talking about divorce. Right. Tonight's show is brought to you by earthblendcoffee.co. Black-owned, roasted, right here in the city of Jackson. It's just great coffee. The link is in the Facebook description box. Click on the link and support our sponsor, earthblendcoffee.co. We'll be right back after the break.
COVID's pioneering coronavirus protocol firm, S1-E COVID Solutions, is paving the way forward for a safer city government, delivering cutting-edge biosecurity and biosafety protocols which have been developed internationally by top virologists and scientists, using an all-natural cleaning solution that kills COVID-19 on contact like no other product on the international market. Let S1-E COVID Solutions provide innovative, rapid facilities testing and world-class, state-of-the-art biorisk safety protocols for all of your coronavirus needs.
Welcome back. This is our last segment, and we were talking about little Chris's burial and the vault and all that situation before we went to break. But we're going to kind of fast forward now because we got some important information we need to get out.
We sure do.
So you need to tell me about the judicial process so far. The information that, because we still know it's an open case, so just tell us the information that you can give us in regards to his case.
I don't have any.
You don't have any information. No one has been arrested.
Nobody has been arrested. Don't nobody have any. But one thing I can tell you, I'm on it.
Okay.
I'm on it every day, every second, every minute. Consistency, as I said, I put the C in it. Determination, I put the D in it. So, So for those mothers that have not had any closure in regards to their case, no one has been arrested, can you tell us, give them some steps, give them 3 steps right now for what they can do in regards to their case? Call me, call me, call me. Them the 3 steps. You ain't had the money? Call me. You ain't had the resources? Call me. You don't know what to do? Call me.
So yes, we are. One of the things that we're realized. I know I've talked to several people this week where no one has been arrested in regards to their case. That's not just here in the city of Jackson, but that's statewide, and so that is an issue. And yes. We need to really, really, really ask these parents that if your child has been murdered here in the city of Jackson or anywhere in the state, you have a responsibility to get involved. And so what we wanted to do, and I wanted to talk to Ms. Johnson about, is tell us some of the other things that you've done in regards to your son's case.
Well, I'm holding everybody accountable.
What does that look like?
That look like resistance. That's what it looked like. It looks just like resistance because it's been 126 murders here this year. It was 100 and some murders last year. They have never, ever seen somebody like me as a mother. They just ain't did it.
What you mean by that?
I mean, somebody who get up every single day and go down there.
So you downtown every day?
Regardless of my schedule. Regardless of my schedule, it is my main priority. Period. I don't have a certain time. And guess what? Just sometimes I just pull up down there and don't even want to talk to nobody myself. I just sign my name on the books and let them know I was here. So, it's consistency. But the reason why I look so crazy to these people is because no other mothers is doing what I do. No other mothers is calling. No other mothers is calling the district attorney. No other mothers is calling the people in the House of Representatives, the House of Legislators, the governor, the mayor. Ain't nobody else doing it. Miss Johnson is doing it so much to where I'm looking them up on Hines County Land Road.
So
if you don't want to talk to me, I will come to your house.
So you're saying the same advocate that was there for Chris as a young man, a little boy in mental illness, you owe him the same responsibility to find out who's responsible for his death and to hold all of those people who we've elected accountable for what they're supposed to be doing in regards to the case.
Well, you know, they prosecuted Chris to the fullest with an IQ of 58. So, with that being said, they're going to prosecute any and everybody that was involved in his murder. Because, see, one thing about Miss Johnson, the criminal justice system ain't never beat me. They just gave me a run and some time of my money. But once I get everybody in jail, I'm not worried about you pleading out, because one thing about it, the criminal justice system ain't never beat me. I beat it. Mm-hmm. So, everybody going to be held accountable, just like they prosecuted little Chris over and over and cost me and my family members thousands and thousands of dollars. Matter of fact, when Chris died, Chris was out on a $375,000 bond, where Byron railroaded him. A judge down there pencil whooped him. I talked about it on Otha Kane's show last night. So, the same way you did someone with an IQ of 58, you're going to do the same thing into those other people. So, yes, I'm going down there. Yes, I'm calling the people in the Senate. I'm calling the people in the House of Representatives. I'm calling the mayor. I'm calling everybody that can do something about the problem. And I'm asking all the mothers and aunts and uncles and cousins and everybody to get together, because Miss Johnson is, see, way before this. I'm talking about, I got my mind so far off, I'm talking about, if all of us get together, we're going to start a class action lawsuit against the legislator for putting these guns on the street. I'm not the professional, but I live here, and I have lived through it. If you take our homicides from the crack era, when it was really money in this city to be made, and put it now with, after they passed that gun law, it's no comparison.
Well, we know that Mississippi is number 2 in regards to gun violence in the whole United States. And there are different layers to, criminal justice. And, we have to be mindful of that there are so many different layers, and we have to be, as citizens and as mothers who have lost our children, families who have lost our children, we have to make sure that each layer is held responsible for what we paying them. We paying.
Well, you know what? I said last night on Otha Kane's show, people don't go to Madison to commit crimes. They don't go to Rankin County to commit crime. But what Jackson has to do is the same laws that those judges use in Madison and Rankin County, Hines County judges can do those same things. They're under the same statutes of the law. So what we got to make a voice is to say, hey, if you kill in Jackson, Mississippi, you will be held accountable. You would not be able to plead down. Mm-hmm. And then guess what they're going to do to those mothers and those aunts and everybody that's harboring these criminals and that's got them in their house with these assault rifles, not paying no bills, not doing nothing. And they're controlling your damn house. Mm-hmm. Excuse my language. Mm-hmm. But I'm just saying, everybody's going to be held accountable. See, I think it starts at home and spread abroad. I think if you start holding the parents accountable like they used to do our parents, things would change.
Another thing that's happening too is that there's such a backlog in the courts. When my daughter was, when I was going through the plea hearings with Lexi's case, one of the judges had 800 cases on. Just one had 800 cases on her docket, and so we have to be mindful of that. That's another thing that's happening is there's such a backlog until people are not being held accountable.
Wait, when I hear backlog, you know what that make a taxpayer like me say? How do you have a backlog when you've been getting paychecks the whole time?
Well, you know, people have an opportunity to plea. You have to get the jurors.
Right. But what
there are continuances and reschedule.
But to me, those are excuses. You know.
But it's still, like I said, and I've said this over and over and over again. We no longer have a criminal justice system.
Don't.
We have a criminal legal system, and it's a game. You know, we try to figure out who can get the W. However, we can get the W. So it's no longer a criminal justice system. No one really gets the justice that either person deserves. What we have is a criminal legal system, and this is just part of the criminal legal system.
But see, when it comes to that, Ms. Johnson look at it like everybody got a boss.
Well, that's true.
Everybody got a boss.
Yeah, but if no one is saying anything, what does that matter?
I'm the one gonna say something.
Okay, but we need more than you, Miss Johnson.
I know that. We need them on board.
Yeah.
We really need them. Because I'm here to tell you. Baby, let me tell you something. When I pull up, they literally looking at me from up top. They literally calling. She pulling up. She outside. I think she parked over there in the tag place this time. No, I think she parked over there at the city hall. See, they here with me. I just started having to switch cars and everything now. Because Miss Johnson ain't going nowhere.
Yeah.
And then not only that, I got a son for to be in their uniform.
Yeah.
You know? So, I'm not going nowhere for is holding the people accountable for Christopher. But I'm also not going nowhere to make sure this city gets better.
Yeah, because you hold the city. This is not only about the death of Christopher in your mind. This is about the entire city and everyone that has lost a child to violence. And that's what we all should feel. I mean, if anyone is murdered in this city or anywhere else for that matter, it should do something to you.
Well, see, I cared about it before it came to my door. I was making videos probably about 3.5 years ago on my personal Facebook page. And I was asking the mothers and the aunts and the uncles. I was asking them before it came to my front door. And I told them this on that video. Only God knows what I'm going to do if it ever come to my front door. Mm. And back then when I said it, he hadn't used me. Mm. I was speaking of a mind no place good. Mm. But when it came to my front door, what I'm going through now, I have never went through. Normally, you bring your problem to me, I can solve it. I'm a problem solver. That's my gift. Always have been. But now I'm in a problem where I'm learning.
Well, you got to speed it up because we just got about 1 minute.
Okay, well, mothers, aunts, cousins, everybody, please reach us. We're going to try to get everyone together. We're going to have a closed location where no one will know where we meeting at but the people who's involved. We're going to have attorneys, everything there present to help you. Y'all ladies call me. Y'all uncles call me. Y'all wives call me. It's been 126 murders this year, along with 100 and some last year. If you really want to get involved and you really care about closing your case and loving on your loved one, to do the right thing, call me.
And if you're not doing it for you, do it for somebody else. And just think about, your baby and the fact that your child deserves justice. If there's such a thing in this city, your child deserves justice. Give them your telephone number, Ms. Johnson.
Area code 770-866-3683. 770-866-3683.
My telephone number is 601-540-2817. 601-540-2817. And you can go to the website at www.grant-me-justice.org. We're also giving away Christmas baskets for mothers that have lost their children to violence. So we want you to go to that website and complete the registration and get a ticket so that you can come and get your basket. Thank you guys so much for your support and all that you're doing for the city of Jackson. And we'll see you on the next go around.
Call me.
Welcome to the Felicia Marshall Experience on WeBelieve.Global, where we empower mothers who have lost children to violence. My daughter, Alexia K. Buckhalter, was murdered on March 14, 2017, here in the city of Jackson. Each program is dedicated to her memory. Welcome to the Felicia Marshall Experience.